Morning found King's Landing still bleeding, the city's wounds open to the cold air, its streets slick with river mist and old blood. The smoke from the river clung low, as if reluctant to leave the place it had poisoned, and the gulls circled above the rooftops with harsh cries that sounded too much like laughter. In the Red Keep courtyard, carpenters worked under guard, their hammers striking in steady rhythm. Fresh-cut beams lay on the stone like bones. Men tied ropes with practiced hands. The gallows rose clean and simple. No ornate cruelty, no flourish, only function. Stannis Baratheon watched the work as if it were the laying of a foundation. He had washed the mud from his armor, but the black still seemed to drink the pale light. His face was a hard mask, his eyes fixed on the knot being tested and retested. Davos Seaworth stood a step behind him, hands clasped tight. He had seen hangings. He had seen men die for theft and smuggling and rebellion. But in this place, beneath the Red Keep's pale stone, it felt different. Like the city itself was being taught what it meant to belong to a king who did not bargain with law. A line of prisoners shuffled in, guarded by men with stag sigils on their cloaks. Some were soldiers caught with rings and goblets stuffed into their tunics. Some were city men, ragged, desperate, who had thought the night's chaos meant a chance to steal bread or a bolt of cloth. Their eyes were wide now, seeing the rope and realizing that Stannis Baratheon did not see degrees of sin. One began to wail, falling to his knees. "Mercy, your grace. I've children." Stannis did not even turn his head. "If you have children," he said, voice flat, "you should have thought of them before you stole." The man's sobbing broke into animal sounds. Guards hauled him upright again. Davos felt his throat tighten. He took a step forward despite himself. "Your Grace," Davos said softly, "some are starving. The city will eat," Stannis said, and now he looked at Davos, eyes like flint. "It will eat because I will make it eat. I will not have my first day as king marked by chaos. If men believe they can steal without consequence, they will tear the city apart while my ravens are still in the air." Davos held his king's gaze and swallowed whatever else he wanted to say. He understood the logic. He did not like it. There was a difference. Melisandre stood near the archway, red gown bright as spilled wine against gray stone. She watched the prisoners with a calm that made Davos uneasy. Her eyes lingered on the ropes as if they were threads in a tapestry only she could see. "The fire is pleased," she murmured, not to Stannis but to the air itself. Stannis ignored her. The first man was brought beneath the beam. A septon was offered, some trembling fool clutching a 7-pointed star. But Stannis waved him away. "No prayers," he said. He knew the law. The noose went over the man's head. His face shone with sweat. His lips moved, perhaps forming a prayer anyway. The trapdoor fell. The rope snapped taut. The man's body jerked and hung, legs kicking in a futile dance. A hush fell over the watching small folk behind the iron gates. Some flinched. Some stared with hollow-eyed acceptance. A few, Davos saw, looked almost relieved. Relieved that the night's terror was being replaced by something predictable, even if it was cruel. Stannis turned away after the third hanging as if the matter were settled. "Bread," he said. "Open the granaries. Distribute it in the squares under guard. Any man who pushes or cuts will be beaten back. Order first, then mercy." Davos found himself breathing out. Order first. It was Stannis's religion more than any god. As the sun climbed higher, pale and thin through smoke, the Red Keep's courtyards filled with the sound of hammers and shouted commands. A new king's rule was being built not with songs, but with wood and rope and the unyielding weight of consequence. The black cells smelled like rot given patience. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow, steady taps. The air was cold enough to sting the lungs. Torchlight did not reach far. It only made the darkness around it feel thicker, like a thing alive and waiting. Joffrey sat on the stone with his back against the wall, shackled wrist and ankle, his posture stiff as if stubbornness could substitute for warmth. His hair clung to his forehead. His lips were cracked. A bowl of bread and water sat untouched before him, as if it were an insult. When Davos came in, the guards behind him, Joffrey's head snapped up. "You," Joffrey rasped. His voice had lost its accustomed sharpness. It was hoarse, scraped raw by crying and shouting and the silence that followed. "You're the smuggler." Davos stopped a few paces from the bars. He had not wanted to come. Stannis had ordered it. Not as kindness, Davos suspected, but as a reminder that even a prisoner was still part of the king's accounting. "I was," Davos said. "Once." Joffrey's eyes gleamed in the torchlight. "You think you've won. You think you can put me in a hole and call it justice." Davos looked at the boy, at the thinness of him in this place, at the tremor in his hands that he tried to hide by clenching his fists. He had expected a monster. Monsters, it turned out, could look small when stripped of silk. "You're alive," Davos said. "That's more than many who crossed Stannis Baratheon have been granted." Joffrey's mouth twisted. "I'm alive because he wants to humiliate me," he spat. "He wants to parade me. He wants the realm to stare at me like I'm some freak." Davos did not answer quickly. The truth sat heavy between them. "He believes the realm has been lied to," Davos said at last. "He believes law was broken. He believes you. I am the king." Joffrey screamed, sudden and sharp, voice cracking on the last word. He surged forward, chains clinking, gripping the bars so hard his knuckles whitened. "I sat the throne. They knelt. They called me. They feared you," Davos said quietly, and saw the words land like a blow. "Fear looks like loyalty from far away." Joffrey's breathing hitched. For an instant his eyes flicked away, as if a thought had slipped through a crack in his rage. An ugly, unwanted thing. Davos took a half-step closer. "Eat," he said, nodding toward the bread. "If you want to live long enough to scream in front of lords, you'll need strength." Joffrey stared at the bowl as if it might bite him. "Is this your mercy?" he hissed. "Bread and water in filth? It's your life," Davos replied. "Stannis could have had you killed in the yard and been done with it. He didn't. Whatever else you think of him, he's giving the realm what it never had under you." Joffrey's gaze snapped back, furious. "And what's that?" "The truth," Davos said. Joffrey's face contorted, anger collapsing into something rawer. "There is no truth," he whispered, and Davos heard the fear beneath it. The terror of a boy who had been told his whole life that his name was armor. "There's only what people believe, and they believed in me." Davos thought of the small folk in the courtyard, watching ropes tighten. He thought of the bells in the city, ringing under a new order. Belief was a fragile thing. Could be broken with the right hammer. "Belief can change," Davos said. "It changes fast when men see blood and hear witnesses swear oaths." Joffrey's hands slid down the bars. His shoulders sagged, just for a moment, and in that moment Davos saw a frightened child beneath the cruelty. Then Joffrey's face hardened again, pride rushing in like a tide. "My mother will save me," he said, voice shaking with stubborn certainty. "My grandfather will come. Tywin Lannister will burn this city before he lets Stannis." "Tywin Lannister isn't in your cell," Davos said. "And Cersei Lannister is not a key." Joffrey flinched at that, and Davos hated himself a little for the satisfaction he felt in seeing it. A drip fell from the ceiling onto Joffrey's shoulder. He shuddered, not from cold alone. The black cells did not just punish the body. They taught the mind what it meant to be powerless. Davos turned to leave. At the threshold, he paused and looked back once. Joffrey sat staring at the bread now, jaw clenched, eyes glittering with hate and something like shame. Behind Davos, the guards closed the door, and the sound echoed down the corridor like a verdict not yet spoken. Tyrion Lannister woke to pain and the smell of boiled linen. His head throbbed in time with his heartbeat, each pulse a hammer blow behind his eyes. Bandages wrapped his brow, tight enough to make his skin feel stretched. When he tried to move, something in his ribs protested with a sharp, breath-stealing stab. He blinked, vision swimming, and saw Maester Pycelle's pale face hovering above him like a ghost that had misplaced its dignity. "Ah!" Pycelle breathed, relief and terror mixing in his voice. "You live. How unfortunate!" Tyrion croaked, lips dry as parchment. Pycelle made a strangled sound that might have been a laugh if he'd ever truly laughed at anything. He fumbled with a cup and brought it to Tyrion's mouth. The water tasted stale. Tyrion drank anyway because thirst did not care about pride. He heard footsteps, steady, heavy, unmistakable. The room's murmurs quieted as if a blade had been drawn. Tyrion turned his head and saw Stannis Baratheon enter. The new king wore black, as always, but cleaner now, the salt and mud scrubbed away. His face was carved from hard certainty. Beside him walked Davos Seaworth, looking weary and wary. Behind them, leaning against a pillar with a lazy grin as if the world hadn't changed at all, stood Bronn. Tyrion felt a sharp, bitter laugh rise in him. "Well," he rasped, "if it isn't my replacement." Stannis did not respond to the jest. He looked at Tyrion as if assessing a broken tool, worth repairing only if it still served a purpose. "You commanded the defense," Stannis said. "I did," Tyrion replied, talking hurt. He did it anyway because talk was the only weapon he had left. "Not particularly well, as it turns out. You'll forgive me if I don't kneel. I'm having difficulty mustering enthusiasm." Stannis's eyes did not flicker. "You set wildfire on the river." "I did," Tyrion said. "It was either that or let you stroll in unchallenged and, what was it you said? Put your boot on our throats." Davos's gaze tightened, but Stannis's expression remained flat. "You failed," Stannis said. Tyrion winced. "Yes," he said softly. "You'll find I'm accustomed to disappointing my family." Pycelle made a small, terrified noise, as if any wrong word might cost him his head. Tyrion felt an unexpected surge of affection for the old fool's cowardice. It was honest, at least. Stannis stepped closer to the bed. "You will speak at the trial," he said, as if issuing an order to a man still under his command. Tyrion's laugh came out as a cough that tasted of blood. "The trial," he murmured. "So that's your little spectacle." "It is not a spectacle," Stannis said. "It is law. It's theater," Tyrion said, forcing his breath steady. "You want lords to clap as you unmake a boy. You want the realm to accept you not because you hold the city, but because you've convinced them your claim is clean." "My claim is clean," Stannis replied. "Clean claims still drown in dirty politics," Tyrion said, eyes narrowing. "Ask Renly." Oh wait, a flash, just a flicker, passed across Stannis's face, too quick for most to catch. Davos saw it. Tyrion saw it. Bronn's grin widened. Stannis leaned in slightly. "You will speak of what you know," he said, voice low now, dangerous. "You will speak of the Queen's children, of the Book of Lineages, of what was whispered in this castle long before you spilled green fire on my river." Tyrion's tongue felt heavy. He could lie. He could deny. He could play the loyal imp and die for it. But Tywin Lannister was not here to save him, and Cersei Lannister's love was a blade that cut its own handle. Tyrion looked at Davos. Davos did not look away. There was no glee in the smuggler's eyes. Only a hard, weary acceptance of what this city demanded. "What do I get?" Tyrion asked because he could not help himself. Bargaining was his nature. Stannis straightened. "You live," he said. Tyrion swallowed his anger. "And my sister?" he pressed. "My nephews? My niece? They will be dealt with by law," Stannis said. "Not by your pleas." Tyrion closed his eyes briefly. Law, Stannis's favorite word. It was a sword he swung at everything, even when it cut his own cause. When Tyrion opened his eyes again, he met Stannis's gaze. "Very well," he said softly. "I'll speak." Stannis nodded once, as if that settled the matter. He turned to leave. As he passed Bronn, Tyrion caught his Sellsword's eye. Bronn's grin held no loyalty, only opportunity. "Try not to die," Bronn said cheerfully. Tyrion managed a thin smile. "I'll do my best." he murmured, and wondered, not for the first time, whether his best would ever be enough to survive the games of kings. Tywin Lannister read the Raven's message twice. Not because he needed to, but because disbelief was a kind of insult, and Tywin Lannister did not accept insults lightly. The lantern light in his war tent threw hard shadows across the lines of his face, deepening every crease as if the years themselves had sharpened. The parchment trembled faintly, though not from Tywin's hand. The wind outside rattled the canvas. Rain hissed on the ground, turning the camp to mud. Kevan Lannister stood opposite him, silent, his mouth set in a grim line. Ser Adam Marbrand hovered near the entrance, eyes darting as if searching for a solution hidden in the folds of the tent. "The city is taken," Kevan said at last, voice carefully controlled. "The boy in chains." Tywin's gaze lifted, and for a moment the air seemed to chill. "Do not call him boy," Tywin said. "He is." He stopped. The word king did not come. It stuck in his throat like a bone he refused to swallow. Tywin folded the parchment slowly, each crease precise. "Stannis Baratheon has the capital," he said. "He has the Red Keep, and he has my daughter. And the younger children," Kevan added quietly. Tywin's jaw tightened. Tommen and Myrcella. Pieces Tywin had always assumed were safe behind walls and swords, now sat in the hands of a man who did not play by the usual rules. Stannis would not trade them for gold. He would not be flattered by titles. He would not be bribed with concessions that compromised his claim. He would demand submission. Tywin Lannister's mouth thinned. Submission was a word for lesser men. "Stannis means to hold a trial," Kevan said. "To shame the boy before lords. To speak of incest," Tywin finished, voice flat. The word tasted foul, even in the mouth of a man who rarely let taste trouble him. Tywin had always understood rumor as a weapon. Now rumor was being raised into law. "Seradam Chiftith, Anisi." "If the realm hears it," he said, "some may waver." "The Tyrells." "The Tyrells," Tywin repeated, and for the first time there was something like a spark in his eyes. Not anger, calculation. Mace Tyrell had marched for advantage, not principle. The Reach's strength lay in its grain and men, in the soft power of abundance. Tywin could use that. He could offer what Stannis could not. A future wrapped in silk and promises, a throne made palatable. But the Tyrells had once chosen Renly. Renly was dead. The Reach was in motion, searching for the next branch to cling to before the river took it. Tywin walked to the table and spread the map flat with one palm. King's Landing sat like a jewel at the mouth of the Blackwater, now a jewel in Stannis' fist. Tywin traced the roads with a finger, mind moving faster than his hand. "We cannot storm the city," Kevan said, reading his brother's thoughts. "Not with hostages inside, not with our supply lines stretched, not with the river compromised." Tywin's eyes remained on the map. "Then we do not storm it," he said. Kevan frowned. "Then what?" Tywin lifted his gaze, and the look there made the lantern flame seem to shrink. "We make Stannis Baratheon's victory rot," he said softly. "We make his law look like tyranny. We make his god look like a threat. We make the realm fear him more than it despises us." Seradam swallowed. "How?" Tywin's mouth curled. Not a smile, but the shape of one. "Words," he said. "Gold, ravens, lords who prefer a familiar monster to an unfamiliar one." Kevan's expression tightened. "And Cersei." Tywin's face did not change, but something in the set of his shoulders shifted. An invisible weight acknowledged. "She will endure," Tywin said, "or she will not. The realm will endure regardless." Kevan's eyes flickered, a brother's silent protest, but he did not speak. He had served Tywin long enough to know when emotion was unwelcome. Tywin reached for another parchment and began to write with steady hand. Orders, messages, demands. The ink flowed like blood from a controlled wound. "To High Garden," he said as he wrote. "To the Faith. To every lord who has ever feared Stannis Baratheon's harshness more than they feared my pride." Outside, Thunder rolled. In the distance, a lion banner snapped in the rain. Tywin Lannister did not rage. He did not grieve. He simply began to move his pieces again, because a loss was only final when a man stopped playing. The Tyrell camp smelled of fresh bread and horse sweat and crushed flowers. Even on the road, even in war, the Reach carried its own softness like perfume. Silk banners hung from poles. Knights polished armor that already shone. Servants moved with trays, offering wine and meat as if the world were not burning a day's march away. Inside the grand pavilion, Mace Tyrell sat heavy in his chair, fingers clutching a goblet as if the metal might anchor him. His cheeks were flushed, not from drink, though he had drunk, but from outrage and uncertainty. A maester stood nearby with a parchment in hand, reading the Raven's message again, voice careful. Stannis Baratheon now holds King's Landing, the Red Keep, and the royal children. Joffrey, enough? Mace barked, slamming his goblet down so wine sloshed. I heard it the first time. I heard it the second. I do not need to hear it again to believe the gods have taken leave of their senses. Loras Tyrell stood like a drawn sword at the edge of the tent, fists clenched, green eyes burning. Renly had been his son, and the world after Renly was gray and jagged. Stannis murdered him, Loras said, voice tight with fury. Now he takes the capital and calls it law. He will hang the boy and crow about justice while he will not hang the boy, Olenna Tyrell said, and her voice cut through the men's anger like a needle through cloth. Mace turned to his mother, flustered. Mother! Olenna sat in a chair that looked too big for her small frame, yet she occupied the pavilion as if it were her own garden. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her eyes were sharp as thorns. He won't hang him quickly, she continued. He'll drag it out. He'll parade his righteousness. He'll make the realm watch and squirm until their stomachs ache with it. Stannis Baratheon isn't cruel in the way of Joffrey. He's cruel in the way of winter. Loras's jaw clenched. Then we should march, he snapped. We should take the city from him. And kill the children in the process? Olenna asked mildly. Or shall we politely ask Stannis to toss them off the walls first, so you can feel righteous while you climb over their bodies? Loras's face flushed. He looked away, anger warring with helplessness. Mace huffed. We cannot leave the capital to him, he said. If he holds it, he holds the realm. Our harvests, our trade. Our harvests will rot if you rush into a siege, Olenna said, and there it was, the core of her. Not pride, not banners, but calculation. And if Tywin Lannister is clever, which he is, gods curse him, he will make you bleed while he watches. He will let you do the hard work, then step over your corpses into the throne room. Mace swallowed, thinking. Loras's hands flexed as if around an invisible sword. A distant murmur rose from outside the pavilion. Knights arguing, men whispering. The Reach was full of proud houses. Proud houses did not like being forced to choose between a stern king and a lion they had tried to devour. What does Stannis offer? Mace asked, and the question sounded strange from him, as if he were tasting the idea of bargaining with a man he had once dismissed. Olenna's lips curved. Stannis offers law, she said, and law is very fine when it serves you. When it doesn't, it's a rope. Loras turned sharply. We cannot kneel to him. You may not be able to, Olenna said, gaze flicking to him with something almost gentle. But your house may have to, unless you prefer the Lannisters, and all the joys they bring. Mace shifted, uncomfortable. Tywin will write, he muttered. Oh, he will, Olenna agreed. And he will offer you marriage and titles and promises, everything that feels like comfort. He will not offer you safety. Not truly. Outside, a horn sounded faintly. Someone returning with news, perhaps. The world was moving fast, and the Tyrells were standing in scented grass, trying to decide which way to run before the fire reached them. Olenna leaned forward slightly, eyes glittering. We will not rush, she said. We will send envoys. We will smile. We will listen. And while the men shout about honor, we will consider what keeps our house alive. Loras's throat worked. Renly is dead, Olenna said, not cruelly, but firmly, as if anchoring him to reality. And dead men do not need banners. The living do. Mace stared at the parchment again, as though it might change if he glared hard enough. Beyond the pavilion, the Reach's great host waited, an avalanche of green and gold ready to fall, but uncertain which mountain to bury. In the distance, King's Landing sat under Stannis Baratheon's black banners, and the trial he promised began to cast its shadow across the realm. Stannis Baratheon held council in a room that looked as if joy had never been allowed to enter. The walls were plain stone. The table was unadorned wood. The only color came from parchment and wax seals and the red of Melisandre's gown, which seemed almost obscene against the austerity. Davos stood at Stannis's right hand, feeling the weight of being in a place that had once belonged to men born into such power. Varys stood near the wall, hands folded, face composed, as if he had always served Stannis Baratheon and not merely shifted his loyalty like a cloak in the night. Axel Florent sat stiff-backed, lips pressed thin, eyes sharp with resentment that Davos's presence implied. Letters lay scattered across the table, responses already arriving in Raven's haste. Some were cautious, some were furious, some dripped with flattery so thick Davos felt sick reading them. "The faith resists," Davos said, tapping one letter with a rough finger. "The High Septon says he will not come to your court while the Red Woman walks your halls." Melisandre's lips curved faintly. "He fears truth," she murmured. Stannis's gaze did not shift to her. "He fears losing power," he said. "The faith will attend." Axel Florent leaned forward, eager. "Burn their sept," he suggested, voice sharp. "Let them see what happens when they defy their rightful king." Davos felt his stomach twist. "Your Grace," he said, careful. "If you burn septs, you'll make enemies faster than ravens can fly." Axel's eyes flashed. "And if we do nothing, they will defy him openly." Stannis lifted a hand, silencing both. "No burning," he said. "Not yet. The faith will be compelled by law, not terror. If they refuse, I will replace their High Septon with one who understands the realm's needs." Varys spoke then, voice smooth. "Replacing the High Septon may prove challenging," he said. "The faith's power is rooted in perception. Many will see such a move as tyranny." Stannis's eyes snapped to him. "You speak as if you care." Varys smiled faintly. "I care for the realm, Your Grace," he said, as if the words were harmless. "A realm on fire is difficult to rule, even for the rightful king." Davos watched Stannis study Varys. The spider was a man of whispers, and Stannis hated whispers, yet he kept Varys close. Davos could not decide whether it was wisdom or arrogance. "What of Lord Tywin?" Stannis asked. Varys' smile did not change, but his eyes sharpened. "He will not accept defeat," he said. "He will craft a story where you are a fanatic who seized the city through sorcery. He will seek allies who fear you more than they hate him." Axel snorted. "Let him come. We have the city." "We have a city that hates us," Davos said bluntly. "A city that's hungry and frightened." Stannis's jaw tightened. "Then we will feed it," he said, "and punish those who stir it. Bread and rope. That is how you tame a riot." Melisandre stepped closer to the firebowl, her presence like heat. "The fire shows enemies gathering," she said softly. "A rose with thorns, a lion with gold teeth. They will come." Stannis did not look at her. "They always come," he said. He turned to Davos. "Sansa Stark," he said. Davos blinked. "The girl. She is in my castle," Stannis said. "She will be produced. The realm will see that I do not butcher hostages. She will also be useful." Axel's mouth curled. "Useful how?" Stannis's eyes were cold. "As a reminder to the north of what was taken from them," he said. "And as a witness to Joffrey's rule." Davos felt a sour knot in his gut. Using a girl as a piece on a board was the kind of thing lords did. Stannis despised lords. Yet he did it anyway because kings could not afford purity. Outside the stone walls, faint bells rang as bread was distributed in the squares. Davos could almost hear the murmurs of the small folk, the whispers spreading like smoke. Stannis is king now. Stannis hangs thieves. Stannis opens granaries. Stannis will put Joffrey on trial. In the council chamber, parchments rustled as Stannis began to sort his war into an order he could understand. "Summon the lords," he said. "Prepare the hall. Clean it. I will not have my court stink of Lannister arrogance." "And if they refuse to come?" Exel asked. Stannis's gaze lifted, hard as iron. "Then they declare themselves against law," he said. "And law will remember them." Sansa Stark walked as if she had learned to carry fear like a secret. The Red Keep's corridors were quieter now, but quiet did not mean safe. Quiet could mean men listening behind doors. Quiet could mean knives being sharpened in silence. She wore a simple gown, plain cloth without embroidery, as if someone had stripped her of all the pretty lies she had once believed in. Her hair was brushed, but there was no joy in it. Her face was pale, her eyes too large, and yet she held her chin level as she moved, as if pride were the only thing no one could take unless she handed it over. 2 guards flanked her. They were not cruel, not like the men who had once dragged her through the halls for Joffrey's amusement. They were simply there, impersonal as walls. Davos met her near a turn in the corridor. He held a cloak in his hands, dark wool, rough but warm. "My lady," he said, and the title felt strange on his tongue. A smuggler offering courtesy in a castle that had once despised him. Sansa's gaze flicked to him. Recognition sparked faintly. "You," she said softly. "You were with the king." "With Stannis," Davos said. "I." She hesitated, eyes darting to the guards and back. "Is it true?" she whispered. "Is Joffrey in chains?" Davos said. He did not soften it. Softness in this castle had always been a trap. Sansa's breath shuddered out of her. For an instant her eyes closed as if she were holding back something too large. Then she opened them again, and the composure returned like armor snapped into place. Davos offered the cloak. "It's cold," he said. Sansa took it with careful hands, drawing it around her shoulders. The wool smelled of salt and smoke, not perfume. Smelled oddly like real life. "Thank you," she said, and her voice held a stiffness that suggested she had practiced gratitude until it was safe enough to say without shaking. Davos glanced past her, down the corridor where the throne room doors stood partly open. He could see the iron throne in the distance, jagged and cruel. And beyond that, standing in shadow like a carved statue, Stannis Baratheon watched. He did not approach. He did not offer comfort. He simply observed, as if measuring what Sansa Stark might be worth in the currency of war. Sansa followed Davos's gaze and saw him too. Her expression did not change, but something in her eyes sharpened, an understanding that this new king was not Joffrey, but he was still a king, and kings were never gentle. She squared her shoulders under the cloak and took a step toward the throne room. Davos fell into step beside her, voice low. "He will ask you questions," he warned. "Not today, perhaps, but soon. About what you saw, about your father, about the boy." Sansa's mouth tightened. "I told the truth once," she said, barely audible, "and it killed my father." Davos felt a sting behind his eyes. He had not known Ned Stark, not truly, but he had known what it meant to lose a good man to a court full of liars. "This is not Joffrey's court," he said. Sansa's gaze stayed forward. "Courts are courts," she murmured. "They eat girls all the same." They reached the threshold. The throne room smelled of old steel and new wax. Stannis stood near the base of the iron throne, not sitting, hands clasped behind his back. He looked at Sansa as she approached. His face was unreadable. "Lady Sansa," he said. Sansa curtsied, the movement practiced and precise. "Your Grace." Stannis studied her for a long moment. "You are Ned Stark's daughter," he said. It was not a kindness. It was a fact like naming the weather. "I am," Sansa replied, voice steady. Stannis' eyes narrowed. The realm will gather, he said. They will hear truth. You will speak when called upon. You will not lie. Sansa lifted her chin a fraction. I learned what lies cost, she said softly. For the briefest instant, Davos thought he saw something in Stannis' gaze. Approval, perhaps, or at least recognition of steel in someone small. Good, Stannis said. When this is done, we will discuss your return to the north. Sansa's throat bobbed. Hope flickered, dangerous, bright. Davos saw Stannis' face remain hard and knew the truth. Return would be a bargain, not a gift. Still, in a castle where hope had been used as a whip, even the promise of negotiation felt like a mercy. The great September bells rang not in celebration, but in warning. They tolled with a frantic insistence that drew the small folk like moths to flame. By midday, a crowd had gathered outside the sept, pressed tight together, faces turned upward, hands clutching seven-pointed stars and crude icons carved from wood. Fear and faith mixed in them until they became something volatile. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Stannis will burn the September. Stannis will force the city to worship the Red God. Stannis will hang septons like thieves. Each whisper grew teeth as it passed from mouth to mouth. Inside, the high septon sat pale beneath the crystal and gold of the sept, surrounded by lesser septons who looked like frightened birds. His hands shook as he held his star. His lips moved in prayer, but the prayer sounded thin in the echoing space. When Stannis' soldiers arrived, the crowd surged forward with a roar. 7! Someone shouted. 7! 7! Stannis did not come himself. He sent men in his name, disciplined, armored, shields raised. They formed a line across the sept steps, blocking the doors with cold efficiency. Davos stood near the front, cloak pulled tight, feeling the tension like a bowstring. He did not like being here. He did not like the way the crowd's eyes looked at the stag banners, as if they were an insult to the gods. He did not like the way Melisandre stood off to the side, calm, watching the faithful as if they were fuel. A woman in the crowd screamed, "Witch!" and hurled a rotten apple. It splattered near Melisandre's feet. She did not flinch. She smiled faintly, and the smile made Davos's skin crawl. The high septon's doors opened a crack. A septon stepped out, hands raised. In the name of the 7, he began, voice trembling, "We demand. The king demands your presence at court." Davos interrupted, raising his voice so it would carry. "The realm's lords are being summoned. The faith will bear witness to the truth of the crown." The septon's face tightened. The faith does not take commands from a smuggler. The unspoken words hung there. From a king who kneels to a foreign god. The crowd roared louder. The line of soldiers held, shields pressed. Davos heard a man behind him mutter a prayer, not to the 7, but to whatever might keep the crowd from breaking. A stone flew. It struck a soldier's helm with a sharp crack. Another followed, then another. The crowd's anger turned from voice to violence with frightening speed. "Hold!" Davos shouted. "Hold the line!" A young soldier flinched as a stone cut his cheek. Blood ran down under his helmet. His eyes widened, and Davos saw the moment fear tried to turn into retaliation. "No," Davos snapped, catching the man's arm. "You do not strike the small folk. Not unless you want this city to drown in its own madness." Behind Davos, the sept doors opened wider, and the high septon appeared, pale as wax, star clutched to his chest. The crowd's roar faltered. "Reverent now. My children," the high septon called, voice shaking. "The 7 see us." A new voice cut through, cold and hard. "The king sees you," it said. Stannis' captain stepped forward, face grim beneath his helm. "The high septon will attend," he declared. "If he refuses, he will be removed." The crowd surged again, outrage flaring. Davos's heart pounded. This was the edge of a blade. One wrong move and the city would erupt into holy riot, and Stannis' harsh rule would become the story Tywin needed. Davos stepped forward, hands raised, palms open. "The king is not here to burn your gods," he shouted. "He is here to burn a lie. If the faith cares for truth, then let the High Septon come and hear it." The crowd hesitated, the words sinking into them. Truth, lie. Even the most devout had heard whispers about golden-haired children and a king who did not look like his supposed father. The High Septon's eyes flicked, fear and calculation mixing. He understood. Davos realized that refusing now might make him a martyr, or might make him a prisoner with no crowd to save him. Slowly, with hands trembling, the High Septon nodded. A murmur spread through the crowd, uneasy but calmer. Stones stopped flying. The line of soldiers held. Melisandre watched, red eyes bright. "They fear their gods are weak," she murmured, almost pleased. Davos did not answer. He had seen enough fire in his life. He wanted no more gods who smiled at the thought of burning. As the High Septon was escorted away under guard, the crowd parted reluctantly, whispers following like shadows. In the city, faith had bent. Not broken, not yet, but bent under the weight of a king who did not kneel. At Riverrun, the Raven's message tasted like iron. Robb Stark read the letter once, then again, as if repetition might reveal a hidden trap. The words were plain, as Stannis' words always were: no flourish, no courtesy beyond the bare minimum. King's Landing has fallen. Joffrey Waters is in chains. The realm will gather. The truth will be spoken. Lords are commanded to attend. Commanded, as if the North were simply another banner to be snapped into place beneath Stannis Baratheon's hard hand. Robb's jaw tightened as he lowered the parchment. Around him, the great hall murmured with restless voices. Northern lords clustered like wolves, faces hard, eyes bright with anger and interest alike. Catelyn Stark stood beside her son, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. When Robb looked at her, he saw something in her eyes he had not seen in a long time: vindication, sharp and aching. "Ned," she whispered, as if saying her husband's name might steady the room. Lord Edmure Tully shifted, unease written on his face. "If Stannis holds the capital," he said carefully, "then the Lannisters still have armies," Great John Umber growled, slamming a fist on the table, "and still have gold. A lion in a trap bites hardest." Roose Bolton's pale eyes glittered as he watched the hall. "A trial," he said softly, "public, before the realm. Stannis is bold." "He's right," said Lord Karstark, voice tight with grief that had soured into fury. "Joffrey murdered our lord. If Stannis drags him into the light, we should what?" Robb cut in, voice sharper than he intended. The hall quieted, all eyes on him. "Kneel? Trade one king for another." Catelyn placed a hand on his arm. "He speaks of justice," she murmured. "Justice for your father. For the realm." Robb's gaze flicked to the direwolf banners hanging from the rafters. His father had died because he believed in law, in honor, in truth, and truth had not saved him. "Stannis' justice," Robb said, "comes with chains." A murmur of agreement ran through some, while others looked uncertain. Stannis Baratheon's claim had weight, more weight than Renly's ever had. And if Joffrey truly was not Robert's son, then everything that had happened, the war, the deaths, Ned's execution, was built on rot. The door to the hall opened, letting in a gust of cold air. A messenger hurried in, mud on his boots, face flushed. "My king," he said, bowing. "News from the west. The Lannisters are moving. Lord Tywin is sending ravens. The Reach will choose its advantage," Roose Bolton murmured. Robb clenched his jaw. The Reach's men were many. If they joined Tywin, Stannis would face a storm. If they joined Stannis, the Lannisters would be strangled. And the North, caught between, would have to decide whether to pursue independence or vengeance. Catelyn leaned closer. "If the realm sees Joffrey condemned," she whispered, "the Lannisters weaken. This could end the war." Robb looked at her, and his heart twisted. He wanted the war to end. He wanted his sisters safe. He wanted the North whole again. But ending the war by kneeling to another southern king felt like swallowing poison for the promise of relief. "What does he offer?" Robb asked aloud, and the hall quieted again. "What any king offers," Great John rumbled. "His boot and his law." Robb stared at the parchment in his hand, feeling the weight of words that could reshape the realm. Stannis wanted lords to attend his court like jurors. He wanted their eyes and their voices to bless his claim. Robb thought of Sansa in King's Landing, a hostage in silk and stone. He thought of Arya, lost in the chaos. He thought of his father's head on a spike and Joffrey's laughter. He folded the letter slowly. "We will send envoys," he said at last. "We will hear what Stannis says. We will not rush to kneel, but we will not ignore a chance to break the Lannisters." Catelyn exhaled, the sound trembling. Roose Bolton's eyes remained calm. Too calm. The hall erupted into debate again, voices rising like wolves arguing over a carcass. Outside, the river ran cold and indifferent, carrying the realm's blood toward the sea. In King's Landing, the throne room was cleaned like a wound. Men scraped dried blood from stone. Servants scrubbed soot from pillars. Lannister banners were torn down with rough hands. Crimson cloth ripped free and tossed aside as if it were refuse. In their place, stag banners rose, black crowned with flame, snapping in drafts that smelled faintly of smoke and cold iron. Stannis demanded the hall be made ready not for feasting, but for judgment. Benches were arranged for witnesses, tables for maesters. Space was cleared for lords who would arrive and pretend their eyes had always been open. The High Septon arrived under guard in a litter that looked suddenly fragile beneath the Red Keep's harsh stone. His face was pale, lips pinched tight. He clutched his seven-pointed star like a shield. As he was escorted through the doors, courtiers stared. Some bowed reflexively. Some looked away, afraid of choosing the wrong loyalty with their eyes. Sansa Stark waited near a pillar, half hidden by shadow. She wore the dark cloak Davos had given her, hands clasped tight beneath it. Her face was composed, but her eyes tracked every movement, calculating danger in every step the way she had learned to do in Joffrey's court. Varys stood not far away, his stillness almost comforting compared to the frantic energy that had once filled this hall. His smile was small, unreadable. He watched men work as if watching history being rearranged. In the depths below, chains clinked. Joffrey was hauled up from the black cells by two guards, his wrists bound, iron biting his skin. He looked thinner, paler, his eyes too bright. He blinked against the torchlight as if light itself were an enemy. When he stepped into the throne room, his gaze flew to the Iron Throne and stopped. The throne loomed above him, jagged, cruel, indifferent. It had once been his toy, his stage. Now it was a predator watching prey. He swallowed, throat bobbing, and his eyes darted across the room, searching for his mother, for familiar faces, for any sign that this nightmare might still be turned. He found Sansa. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. Sansa's face did not change. She did not flinch. She simply looked at him with a quiet, steady cold that frightened him more than hatred would have. Joffrey's mouth opened as if to speak, perhaps to threaten, perhaps to beg, but no sound came. His chains clinked as he stumbled forward. Stannis entered then, boots striking stone with measured force. The hall seemed to tighten around him. Men straightened as if pulled by invisible strings. He stopped beneath the Iron Throne and looked out over the prepared chamber as if weighing it, as if weighing the realm itself. "This hall has heard lies," Stannis said, voice carrying without effort. "It will hear them no longer." The High Septon's fingers tightened on his star. Varys' smile did not change. Sansa's hands clenched beneath her cloak. Joffrey's breath came fast, shallow. Stannis' gaze fell on the boy in chains. "You will be tried," he said, and the words were not a promise. They were a sentence already written. Outside the Red Keep, the city's bells rang again. Steady now, controlled. Ravens circled overhead, black wings against pale sky, while far beyond the walls lords began to move, drawn toward King's Landing by curiosity, fear, and the scent of power shifting. In the throne room, Joffrey stood beneath the shadow of the Iron Throne and realized, with a sick certainty, that the realm was coming to look at him, and that eyes could be sharper than blades. The throne room breathed differently now. Where once it had reeked of wine and sweat and the warm rot of flattery, it smelled of lie and cold iron. Servants had scrubbed the stone until their hands were raw. Ash had been swept from the corners. The scorch marks where wildfire smoke had crept through broken shutters were still there, faint as bruises, but the room had been made as clean as a place built for lies could be. Stannis Baratheon stood beneath the Iron Throne and refused to sit. A king who sat too soon became a man clinging to a chair. Stannis would not be that. He wore plain black now, without jeweled pins or gilded clasps, as if he meant to prove the crown's worth was not in its shine. The stag of Baratheon and the flaming heart of his new god hung behind him, banners snapping gently in a draft that slipped through the tall windows like a knife. Davos Seaworth watched from a step below, feeling the strange weight of a room that had once been the beating heart of the realm's vanity. Men moved about them, scribes laying out ink and parchment, maesters setting down ledgers, guards testing the fit of benches as if lords might break them with their pride. The throne room was being turned into a court, and every sound echoed as if the stone itself were surprised to hear law spoken here. "Where are the records?" Stannis asked, voice flat. A trembling clerk stepped forward, sweating. "Why, your grace, the ledgers of the Master of Coin are being retrieved. Some are missing." Stannis's eyes narrowed. "Missing?" The clerk swallowed. "Lord Peter Baelish ran," Stannis said, finishing the thought as if it were inevitable. He turned his head slightly toward Davos. "Find him." Davos hesitated. "He could be anywhere." Stannis did not blink. "He is a man of debt and promises. He will not go where neither have value. Put eyes on every port, every road. Offer a pardon to any man who brings me Lord Peter Baelish alive." Alive, always alive. Stannis's justice wanted witnesses, not corpses. A guard captain approached and knelt. "Your grace, the black cells are secured. The prisoner has been washed and fed. He's restless." Stannis's mouth twitched, not with humor, but with something like disdain. "He can be restless in chains," he said. "He will be quieter when the realm is watching." Beyond the open doors, the castle's corridors carried the muffled sounds of a city trying to decide whether it hated its new king or feared him more than it hated the old. Bells rang in measured intervals now, not the frantic peals of panic. Somewhere, bread was being distributed under spear points. Somewhere, a thief was being dragged to a rope. The High Septon was due to arrive under guard. Lords would come with banners and grievances. Maesters would bring books, and men who had sworn oaths to a golden-haired boy would now swear new ones to a man in black. Stannis watched it all as if watching the tide. "They will say I am staging a show," he said, more to the room than to Davos. Davos kept his voice low. "And what will you say?" "That the realm has been deceived," Stannis replied. "That the realm must see. A lie is not undone in whispers. It must be dragged into the hall and made to stand." He turned, gaze sweeping across the benches and the scribes and the empty spaces where lords would soon sit. "This court will not be a nest of crows," he said. "No shouting, no naibs. Any man who draws steel will lose his hand. Any man who lies under oath will hang." The threat landed like a weight. Even the servants moved more quietly. Davos looked up at the Iron Throne, its twisted blades, its cruel promise, and wondered how many men had sat there believing they owned it, only to learn it owned them. Stannis stood below it like a judge beneath a gallows, and for the first time Davos truly understood. The battle for King's Landing had been fought with steel and fire, but what came next would be fought with words sharp enough to cut the realm in two. Cersei Lannister's chamber had always been a sanctuary of perfume and silk. Now it smelled of fear. The windows were shuttered. The hearth was cold. Guards stood outside the door in silent shifts, their boots scuffing the stone at regular intervals like a clock counting down. The decanter of wine sat on a table where she had left it, dark red and innocent looking, and the cups beside it gleamed as if waiting for guests who would never come. Cersei stood near the hearth with her back straight, hair unbound and falling over her shoulders like a golden cloak she could not afford to lose. Tommen sat on the bed, knees drawn up, face blotched from crying. Myrcella stood near the window, chin lifted, trying to be brave in a room that had become a cage. When the door opened, it was not Tywin Lannister who entered, not the Kingsguard, not the familiar weight of power. It was Stannis Baratheon. He came in with Davos Seaworth at his shoulder and 2 guards behind, his presence filling the room as if the air itself had been measured and found wanting. Cersei's eyes flashed at Davos first, contempt for the lowborn who had dared stand in her world, then sharpened on Stannis with a hatred that could have lit a torch. "You've taken my son," she said, voice like ice. "Do you feel like a king yet?" Stannis's gaze flicked to the children and then back to her. "I am a king," he said, "by right." Cersei's laugh was small and bitter. "Right," she said, "a word men use when they want to sound clean while they do filthy things." Stannis stepped closer, boots silent on thick rugs. "Your son will be tried," he said, "before the realm." Tommen made a small sound, a whimper quickly swallowed. Myrcella's eyes widened, but she did not look away. Cersei's mouth tightened. "You will not touch Tommen," she snapped. "Or Myrcella." "I will not," Stannis said. "They are children. They are not on trial. You are." The words landed like a slap, and for the first time Cersei's composure cracked. A fissure too small for most to see, but Davos saw it. A queen who had ruled through her son's cruelty did not know what to do when the cruelty was removed and the spotlight turned toward her. Cersei's gaze flicked, calculating. "You mean to make me kneel?" she said softly. "To confess. To turn your court into a stage where you can call me whore and traitor and have lords nod along." "I mean to have truth spoken," Stannis said, "under oath, with witnesses, with maesters and septons. If you have a defense, you will speak it." Cersei's lips curled. "Defense?" she repeated. "Against what? Your parchment? Your book of lineages? Your righteous little list of accusations?" Stannis reached down and, with a motion that felt almost contemptuous, picked up one of the crystal cups. He held it to the light. The wine inside caught the glow and looked black. "You plan to poison your own children," he said. Cersei froze. For an instant, the room's air went tight, as if everyone had stopped breathing together. "They are mine," she said at last, voice low and trembling with fury. "They are mine to save, mine to protect from men like you." Stannis set the cup down. "You do not protect them," he said. "You use them." Cersei's eyes flashed, wet now with rage that wanted to become tears and would not be allowed. "I did what I had to," she hissed. "For my house, for my blood, for your pride." Stannis cut in. His voice was not loud, but it was absolute. "You birthed 3 children by your brother and put them on the throne by killing the king you betrayed. That is treason. That is incest. That is a crime against the realm." Tommen began to sob again, shoulders shaking. Myrcella stepped closer to him, placing a hand on his arm as if she could steady him with touch alone. Cersei's gaze snapped to her daughter, softening for the barest moment. Then it hardened again as she faced Stannis. "You think the realm will thank you?" she whispered. "When you drag their kings into filth, when you let them hear the word incest in the throne room. They will hate you, they will fear you, they will run to Tywin because he is familiar." "Let them," Stannis said. "Fear and hate are not law." Cersei's smile was sharp. "No," she said, "but they are power." Stannis turned to leave. At the door, he paused and looked back once, eyes cold. "You will be kept alive," he said, "for your children's sake, if nothing else. Do not make me regret that." When the door shut, Cersei stood rigid in the dim room, breathing hard as if she had been struck. She stared at the untouched wine until her vision blurred, and in the blur she saw not crystal and ruby liquid, but the shape of a knife she could not reach. Behind her, Tommen's sobs filled the chamber like a flood, and Myrcella's quiet murmurs tried to hold back what was coming. Cersei Lannister had built her world on secrets. Now the world was coming to watch them burn. Fleabottom had never cared who sat the Iron Throne, cared whether the bread carts came. Davos Seaworth walked the crooked alleys with a small guard at his back, the stink of the city thick in his nose, sour ale, piss in gutters, the smoky tang of tallow candles burned down to nubs. The streets were crowded with hungry faces and wary eyes. Children darted between legs like rats. Women stood in doorways, arms crossed tight, watching the king's men with the cautious hatred of those who had been promised much and given little. A cart creaked forward under the weight of loaves. Stannis' soldiers flanked it, spears out, faces hard. The baker who pushed it looked as if he might collapse from fear at any moment. Davos had seen men fear swords, but he had not often seen them fear bread. "Line up," Davos called, voice rough, one loaf to a hand. "Nos chaving." A man in rags spat. "We shove or we starve," he snarled. A soldier shifted, grip tightening on his spear. Davos stepped forward before the spear could move. "And if you shove," he said, "you'll be beaten back and lose your chance. This isn't a riot. It's bread." The man's eyes narrowed, suspicious. "What's the price?" Davos held his gaze. "Order," he said. "That's the price." The line formed slowly, grudgingly. Hands reached out, trembling, snatching at loaves like treasures. For every grateful nod there was a glare. For every whispered blessing there was a curse muttered under breath. Davos took it all and let it wash over him. He had been one of them once, hungry, angry, convinced the world owed him something. The only difference now was that he stood beside the men with spears. A woman with a baby pressed to her breast stared at him. "You're not one of them," she said suddenly. Davos paused. "No," he said, "but I was." Her eyes flicked to his missing finger joints. Recognition stirred. "Smuggler," she breathed. "Once," Davos said again, and felt how strange it was that the word no longer tasted like pride. Shouts rose from further down the alley. A scuffle, men pushing. Davos pushed through bodies and found two soldiers dragging a thin boy by the arm. The boy's face was smudged with soot, his hair dark, his eyes furious and frightened. "He tried to steal," one soldier barked. The boy spat. "It was my bread," he shouted. "My ma's starving." Davos looked at the boy and felt an old ache. Dark hair, blue eyes, the look of Robert Baratheon's bastards that he had seen in taverns long ago. Boys who laughed too loud, fought too quick, as if trying to prove they belonged in a world that did not want them. He turned to the soldier. "Let him go," Davos said. The soldier frowned. I said let him go," Davos repeated, and the authority in his voice surprised even him. The soldier obeyed, grumbling. Davos reached into the cart and took a loaf, pressing it into the boy's hands. "Eat," he said, "and tell your ma to keep to the line next time." The boy stared at him, suspicious. "Why?" he demanded. "Because hunger makes thieves of us all," Davos said. "And I've seen enough hanging this morning." The boy's eyes widened at that, and he clutched the loaf like a shield before vanishing into the crowd. As the bread line moved on, Davos's thoughts returned to Stannis' court, to parchments and witnesses and the need for proof that did not rely solely on books and whispers. Robert's bastards were proof made flesh. Black hair and blue eyes that screamed the truth without a single word. He found a scribe waiting near the cart, breathless. "Ser Davos," the man said. "A raven from Dragonstone. The boy Edric Storm, he is prepared for travel. Queen Celis insists." Davos closed his eyes briefly. Edric Storm, Robert's acknowledged bastard, raised in Storm's End, blood of Baratheon plain in his face. Bringing him to King's Landing would be dangerous. It would also be devastating. "He must come," Davos said softly. The scribe hesitated. "The queen worries." "The queen is not the king," Davos said and took the parchment. He stared at the wax seal, feeling the weight of it. He could almost see Edric Storm's face. Young, earnest, terrified, and he could almost hear Stannis' voice. Law must be seen. Davos looked out over Flea Bottom's hungry crowd and wondered how many truths a realm could swallow before it choked. Then he folded the Raven's message and headed back toward the Red Keep, bread dust on his hands, the scent of the city in his cloak, carrying the next piece of Stannis Baratheon's brutal, necessary proof. Dragonstone's cliffs were black teeth biting at a gray sea. The wind there never stopped. It screamed around the towers and through the carved stone mouths of dragons that perched along the battlements, and it carried the salt sting of the narrow sea like a curse. Inside the castle, the air smelled of damp stone and smoke and the faint, sickly sweetness of burning oils. Queen Celis Florent knelt before the hearth, hands clasped, lips moving in fervent prayer. The fire's glow painted her cheeks hollow, her eyes bright with a zeal that had sharpened over years of being ignored by men who preferred laughter to righteousness. Behind her, Princess Shireen Baratheon sat on a stool with a book in her lap. Her face, scarred by grayscale, was half hidden by the fall of her dark hair, and her eyes watched the fire with quiet uncertainty. Patchface rocked nearby, bells on his cap jingling softly, murmuring nonsense in a sing-song voice that made the air feel colder. A door opened. A man entered bearing a raven's message, bowing low. "Your Grace," he said, voice careful. "King Stannis commands." Celis snatched the parchment before he could finish, fingers trembling with anticipation. Her eyes flew across the words, and as she read, her mouth pulled into a smile that looked almost like triumph. "He has taken the city," she breathed. "He has taken the throne." Shireen looked up. "Father?" she asked softly. Celis turned to her daughter, eyes gleaming. "Your father has done what the Lord of Light promised," she said. "The false king is in chains. The realm will see truth. We will go to him. We will stand at his side as the world kneels." Shireen's fingers tightened on her book. "Will they like us?" she asked, voice small. Celis' smile sharpened. "They will learn to fear the light," she said, as if fear were a form of love. "And you will be honored. You will be the king's heir." "They will." Patchface began to sing, rocking faster. "Under the sea, the crowns go clink, clink, clink," he crooned. "Under the sea, the boys all sink, sink, sink." Shireen flinched, but Celis did not even glance at him. She was already turning the parchment over, scanning for more. Her expression tightened. "Edric Storm," she said, and the name was a sour thing on her tongue. "He commands that the bastard be brought." Shireen's eyes widened. "Edric?" A boy appeared at the doorway then, escorted by a guard. A handsome boy with black hair and blue eyes, dressed well enough to remind anyone that he was a bastard of a king, but not well enough to let him forget he was still a bastard. Edric Storm held his chin up, trying to look brave, but his eyes flicked nervously between Celis and the fire. "My lady," he said, bowing awkwardly. Celis' gaze raked over him as if he were a stain on the castle floor. "You will go to King's Landing," she said. "You will stand before lords and septons and speak whatever my husband commands." Edric swallowed. "Why?" he asked, voice cracking despite himself. "Because you exist," Celis said coldly, "and your existence will be useful." Shireen stood, book clutched to her chest. She stepped toward Edric, her face earnest. "You'll be afraid," she said softly, "but father won't hurt you. He won't be cruel for no reason." Edric looked at her, and some of the tension eased from his shoulders. He nodded once, grateful for kindness wherever it appeared. Celis' eyes narrowed at the exchange, displeased by softness. "Prepare the ship," she snapped at the guard. "We sail with the next tide. The king will not be made to wait." Outside, the wind howled around Dragonstone's towers, and the sea threw itself against rock in endless fury. Inside, the queen's prayers burned hotter, while a scarred girl and a bastard boy stood on the edge of a journey that would place them in the heart of a realm about to tear itself open. Patchface rocked and sang, voice lilting like a lullaby for drowning. "Under the sea, the truth goes splash, splash, splash," he whispered. "Under the sea, the lions gnash, gnash, gnash." Shireen hugged her book tighter and stared into the fire, trying to imagine her father's face in the Red Keep, trying not to imagine what the realm's eyes would do when they turned on her. The Tyrell envoy entered King's Landing beneath a white banner stitched with a golden rose. The city gates creaked open with reluctant obedience. Stannis's guards searched every saddlebag, every sleeve, every seam of cloth, treating silk and courtesy as potential hiding places for knives. The Tyrell knights bore it with stiff smiles, their pride bruised by the indignity, their eyes taking in the stag banners hanging from towers that had once flown lions. Lord Mathis Rowan rode at their head, a broad-shouldered man with a calm face and careful eyes. Behind him came two lesser lords and a septon in fine robes, as if the Reach had decided faith was a useful shield. They were escorted through streets where small folk stared and muttered. Some spat as the rose banner passed. Some bowed cautiously, remembering that roses meant grain. A few stared at the stag banners and looked confused, as if the world had turned upside down and not yet decided which way was up. In the Red Keep, Stannis received them in the throne room beneath the Iron Throne, still standing, still refusing the seat. Davos stood at his shoulder, feeling the room tighten the moment the Tyrells entered, like a muscle preparing to resist. Lord Mathis Rowan bowed. "Your Grace," he said smoothly, "King Stannis Baratheon." Stannis's eyes narrowed slightly at the word king. He accepted it without gratitude. "Speak," he said. Lord Mathis held out a parchment. "Lord Mace Tyrell sends greetings," he began, and Davos could hear the lie in the phrase. Greetings from a man who had marched to crush Stannis now arrived as if from a friendly neighbor. He regrets that blood was spilled in the Blackwater. He regrets losing, Stannis said flatly. A flicker of irritation crossed one of the Tyrell knights' faces, quickly smoothed away. Lord Mathis's smile did not falter. "The realm has suffered enough," he said. "Lord Mace wishes to see peace restored. He asks." "He will attend my court," Stannis interrupted. "He will bear witness to the trial, and he will bend the knee." The words fell like stones. A murmur ran through the Tyrell men. Lord Mathis inhaled slowly. "Your Grace," he said, voice careful. "Lord Mace has sworn oaths to King Joffrey. Oaths are not sworn to a bastard," Stannis said. "Oaths sworn to a lie are no oaths. Tell your lord that if he wishes peace, he will come and see truth spoken. If he wishes war, he will stay where he is and feed Tywin Lannister's hunger." One of the knights stepped forward, unable to keep his tongue leashed. "And what of our queen?" he snapped. "Queen Marjorie Tyrell was promised to King Joffrey. What becomes of her now?" Stannis's gaze was cold. "She was promised to a pretender," he said. "She is no queen." The knight flushed, fists clenching. Lord Mathis raised a hand subtly, calming him. "Your Grace," Lord Mathis said. "Lord Mace also wonders about alliances, about how the realm will be bound together under your rule." Davos felt the trap forming like a net. Alliances. The Tyrells did not bend without tying someone to them first. Stannis's eyes remained hard. "By law," he said. Lord Mathis's smile tightened. "Law is strong," he said, "but blood binds hearts. A marriage." "I have a wife," Stannis said, voice sharp enough to cut. "I will not set her aside like a cloak." Lord Mathis bowed his head slightly, as if he had expected that answer and filed it away. "Then perhaps," he said, "a betrothal. Princess Shireen Baratheon is your heir. House Tyrell has sons. Willis Tyrell, Garland Tyrell." Davos's heart thudded. Shireen, a child with scars. A political piece being offered up like coin. Stannis's gaze flickered for the first time, not softening, but focusing. "Princess Shireen is not a bargaining chip," he said. "She is the future," Lord Mathis replied gently, and Davos hated how reasonable it sounded. A future where the Reach's grain feeds the capital without blockade. Where the realm is not torn between lion and stag. Stannis's jaw worked. Davos saw the conflict in him, not between desire and duty, but between two duties. A king's duty to win and a father's duty to protect. Lord Mace will come, Stannis said at last, voice flat. If he does not, he declares himself against law. As for betrothals, nothing is decided. Lord Mathis bowed, satisfied to have planted the seed. Then we will tell him, he said, and we will attend your court, your grace. As the Tyrells were escorted out, Davos leaned in slightly. They're testing you, he murmured. Stannis's eyes stayed on the door long after they left. Let them, he said. They will learn that law does not bend to roses. Davos said nothing, but he looked up at the Iron Throne and thought of Shireen Baratheon's scarred face, and wondered how many children would be traded before the realm finally stopped bleeding. The city's anger found a new shape when it could not find a Lannister to curse. It found Stannis. Whispers swelled in taverns and septs, in brothels and bakehouses. The new king was a demon. The new king worshipped fire. The new king would burn the seven and make the streets run with blood. Some of the whispers were born of fear. Some were born of Lannister gold passed quietly from palm to palm. Davos heard them as he walked the streets near the Great September. Cloak pulled tight against the wind that carried smoke and salt. The crowd there was larger than before. Men and women packed tight, faces flushed, eyes bright with a dangerous fervor. A Septon stood on the steps, shouting prayers, his voice ragged. "Seven protect us," he cried. "Seven preserve our souls from the false king and his red witch," the name which rippled through the crowd like flame through dry grass. Davos turned and saw Melisandre on a balcony across the square. Red gown vivid, her face serene as if she watched a play. The sight of her seemed to draw the crowd's hatred like iron draws lightning. A stone flew, then another. Stannis' soldiers formed a line, shields raised, but the crowd surged, shouting now not prayers but threats. "Burn her!" a man screamed. "Burn the witch!" Davos felt cold sweat slick his palms. If Stannis' men drew steel, the square would become a slaughter and Tywin's story would write itself in blood. He pushed forward, climbing the sept steps, shouting over the roar. "Stop!" he bellowed. "Stop, you fools! Do you want the city to burn? Do you want your children trampled underfoot?" A man shoved him. Davos stumbled, catching himself. He saw hatred in the man's eyes, hatred at being hungry, at being afraid, at being powerless, looking for someone to blame. A torch appeared in the crowd, lifted high. Davos's stomach turned. Fire in a packed square was madness. Fire was what had eaten the river. A sudden cry went up, and Davos saw a figure push through the mass. A gold cloak, but not one of Stannis' men. The cloak was stained, the man's face hidden under a hood. His hand moved too fast. A knife flashed toward Melisandre's balcony. Davos did not think. He yelled, "Archers!" Stannis' archers, posted in the windows of nearby buildings, loosed. The hooded man jerked as an arrow took him in the chest. He fell backward into the crowd, disappearing beneath shouting bodies. For a heartbeat, the crowd went still, stunned. Then panic erupted. People screamed. They shoved. They clawed at each other to flee as if the arrow had struck the air itself. The torch fell, rolling across stone, flame licking at spilled straw. Someone kicked it away before it could catch. A woman shrieked as she was knocked down. A child cried out, thin and lost beneath the roar. Davos grabbed a boy by the arm and hauled him up, shoving him toward a gap in the soldiers' line. "Go!" he shouted. Stannis' soldiers held, shields up, pushing back with controlled force, not striking, not stabbing. Davos felt grim pride in that. Discipline. It was the only thing keeping the square from becoming a charnel yard. Melisandre did not retreat. She stood at the balcony rail, eyes bright, and for a moment Davos thought she looked pleased, as if violence and fear were offerings. When the riot finally broke, the crowd scattering into alleys, leaving behind only dropped stars and trampled prayers. Davos found himself shaking. Captain approached, breathing hard. "Sir Davos," he said. "The king demands to know who sent the knife." Davos looked down at the dead hooded man lying in a pool of blood, his cloak revealing beneath the stain a flash of crimson. Lannister red hidden under gold. "Tywin," Davos said softly. "Or Cersei. Or both. It hardly matters. They want the city to hate us." The captain's mouth tightened. "And what will the king do?" Davos stared at the great September's towering doors, at the broken icons on the steps, at the fear still hanging in the air like smoke. "He'll do what he always does," Davos said. "He'll answer with law." As he turned back toward the Red Keep, he heard the bells ring again. Steady, controlled, trying to drown out the echo of screams. King's Landing was learning that even faith could be turned into a weapon. And Stannis Baratheon was learning that law, no matter how sharp, could not cut rumor without drawing blood. Sansa Stark learned that truth was not a single thing. It was a blade that changed depending on whose hand held it. She sat in a small chamber off the throne room, facing a scribe and a maester who dipped quills and waited with the patient hunger of men about to feed on a story. A guard stood by the door. Davos Seaworth lingered near the window, arms crossed, looking as if he wished he were anywhere else. Sansa's hands were folded in her lap beneath her dark cloak. The wool scratched her skin. It was a small discomfort compared to what she had known in this castle, yet she clung to it as if it were proof she still had a body the world could not entirely claim. "The king requests your account," the maester said gently, "of King Joffrey's reign, of Lord Edric Stark's death, of—" "Say his name," Sansa said suddenly, and her voice was sharper than she expected. The maester blinked. "My lady, my father's name," Sansa said. "Say it." The scribe's quill paused. Davos's gaze tightened. "Lord Edric Stark," the maester said, careful now. Sansa nodded once, as if granting permission. "He was arrested," she began, and the words came slow at first, like a door opening on a room filled with old ghosts. "They said he was a traitor. They said he meant to take the throne. He did not." The scribe wrote, quill scratching. Sansa's throat tightened. She forced herself to continue, because Stannis Baratheon's court would not tolerate pauses for tears. "King Joffrey promised mercy," she said, and the bitterness in her voice startled her. "He promised my father would take the black. He promised it before the sept, before the crowd." Davos shifted, quiet. "And then," Sansa said, feeling the memory rise like bile, "he changed his mind. He smiled. He gave the command. Ser Island Payne took my father's head." The scribe's quill scratched faster. The maester's eyes lowered, as if even hearing it required humility. Sansa's hands clenched beneath her cloak. "They made me look," she whispered. "They made me look at it after. They—" Her voice broke. She swallowed hard and forced it back into steadiness. She would not give this room the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. "King Joffrey was cruel," she said, and the word felt too small. "He beat me. He humiliated me. He laughed when people suffered." The maester hesitated. "Did he ever speak of his parentage?" he asked carefully. Sansa's eyes flicked up, wary. Parentage. The word that could turn a king into a bastard with a stroke of ink. "He spoke of being Robert Baratheon's son," she said. "Often. He spoke of blood and right as if repeating it made it true. He hated anyone who questioned him. He hated—" She stopped. A memory, sudden and sharp. Joffrey holding a crossbow, laughing as he tormented someone smaller. The hound's face hard with disgust. Her own hands shaking as she tried to hide fear. "He hated the truth," Sansa finished quietly. When the maester and scribe had enough, they dismissed her with stiff courtesy. As she rose, the door opened, and Tommen Baratheon stood there with Myrcella Baratheon beside him, a guard behind them. Tommen's eyes were red. Myrcella's face was pale but composed, her courage a fragile lantern she kept shielding with her hands. Sansa froze. She had seen them at court in passing, sweet children in a nest of vipers. Now they looked like hostages who did not yet understand the word. Myrcella stepped forward. "Lady Sansa," she said softly, and her voice held a kindness that made Sansa's chest ache. Are you all right?" Sansa stared at her, stunned by the question. No one in this castle had asked if she was all right in a long time. "I am," she lied gently, because it was easier than truth. "And you?" Myrcella's eyes flicked to the guard. "We are safe," she said, and the carefulness of the word was its own answer. Tommen sniffed. Do they mean to kill Joffrey?" he whispered, and his voice was so small that Sansa felt something twist in her. Pity and anger tangled together. She thought of her father's head. She thought of Joffrey's laughter. She thought of Tommen's trembling mouth. "I don't know," she said honestly. I think they mean to show everyone what he did." Tommen's lip quivered. Myrcella placed a hand on his shoulder, steadying him the way an older sister should never have to. Davos watched the exchange, face tight. When the children were led away again, Sansa felt the room's air shift back into its usual coldness, as if warmth had been a trespass. She walked out into the corridor, cloak drawn close, and whispered her father's name under her breath like a prayer. Somewhere in the castle, Joffrey Baratheon Joffrey Waters waited in chains for a court that would speak the truth. And Sansa Stark understood that truth could save no one if it came too late. Still, she would speak it, because silence had already cost her everything. Tyrion Lannister's laughter had always been a weapon. In the Red Keep's infirmary, it sounded like a cough. He lay propped against pillows that smelled faintly of vinegar, staring at the ceiling as if it might offer an escape route. His brow ached, his ribs ached, his pride ached most of all. He had been hand to a king, and now he was a wounded prisoner in a city ruled by the brother who had never forgiven him for being clever. Varys visited him in the late afternoon, slipping into the room with the softness of a shadow that had learned to smile. He carried no guards with him, no banners, nothing that marked his allegiance beyond the calm certainty that he belonged wherever power gathered. "My lord," Varys said pleasantly, as if they were meeting over wine rather than ruin. Tyrion turned his head and managed a weak grin. "Eunuchs always did have a talent for surviving," he rasped. Varys' smile did not falter. "It is an undervalued talent," he agreed. He settled into a chair as if it were his by right. "How are you feeling?" "Like someone tried to split my head open," Tyrion said. "Which, to be fair, is a common ambition in this city." Varys' eyes gleamed. "And yet you live," he said, "which suggests you remain useful." Tyrion's smile thinned. "To whom?" he asked. Varys leaned forward slightly, voice lowering. "To King Stannis Baratheon," he said, "and perhaps to yourself." Tyrion stared at him. "You want me to testify," he said, "to help Stannis hang my nephew and ruin my sister." Varys spread his hands. "I want the realm to settle," he said gently. "A realm in chaos is a realm where children starve. You have seen what hunger does in these streets." Tyrion's gaze sharpened. "And you're concerned for the children," he said with acid. "How touching." Varys' expression remained mild. "I am concerned for the realm," he said. "Which includes children," inconveniently. Tyrion tried to sit up, grimacing as pain lanced through his side. "Tell me," he said, "what happens to me when I speak? Do I get a cell with fewer rats? Do I get to keep my head?" Varys' smile softened, almost sympathetic. "King Stannis is not a man who spares easily," he said, "but he is a man who values evidence. You can give him evidence. That has value." "And if I refuse?" Tyrion asked. Varys' gaze flicked toward the door, toward the unseen guards, toward the world beyond the infirmary where Stannis' law waited like a noose. "Then you are a Lannister," he said softly, "and King Stannis Baratheon is very fond of nooses." Tyrion exhaled slowly. "My father will come," he said, though the words felt childish in his mouth. "Tywin Lannister will not let this stand." Varys nodded. Lord Tywin will try, he agreed. And while he tries, the city will burn again unless King Stannis convinces the realm to accept him quickly. That is why this trial matters. Tyrion stared at the ceiling again, thinking of Cersei's face, of Joffrey's cruelty, of Tommen's soft tears. He had done monstrous things to keep his family in power. He had told himself it was necessity. Now necessity had changed shape. "What of my sister?" Tyrion asked quietly. Varys's expression did not change, but his voice softened. "She is alive," he said. "For now." Tyrion laughed, the sound rough. "That's your idea of comfort." "It is the only honest comfort," Varys replied. Tyrion turned his head and met Varys's eyes. "If I speak," he said slowly, "it will not be because I love Stannis. It will not be because I believe in his cold little laws. It will be because I'm tired of my sister's lies strangling this city." Varys's smile widened a fraction. "Then speak," he said. Tyrion's fingers clenched the blanket. "And you?" he asked. "Whose side are you on today?" Varys rose smoothly, as if the question had been expected. "I am on the side of the realm," he said, and his tone made the phrase sound almost true. As he left, Tyrion watched him go and felt a chill that had nothing to do with his fever. Varys always sounded reasonable. Reasonable men were often the most dangerous, because they made you believe you were choosing freely when you were only walking down a path they had already cleared. Tyrion closed his eyes and imagined the throne room filled with lords, the word incest echoing off stone, the realm's gaze turning toward his family like sunlight toward rot. He wondered, with a bitter twist of humor, whether he would be crushed with them. Then he opened his eyes again, because in King's Landing, sleep was always a risk, and he began to plan what he would say when the realm demanded his truth. The first banners arrived at King's Landing 3 days after the city fell. Not great hosts, not armies, envoys, small retinues, lords who had decided it was better to be seen in the new king's court than absent from it. They came with cautious faces and carefully chosen words, riding through gates watched by black-cloaked men who did not cheer their arrival. Storm lords filled the courtyard first. Lord Bryce Caron with his fox, Lord Eldon Estermont with his sea turtle, lesser lords and landed knights who had followed Stannis because he was their king and because they had no other king left. They moved through the Red Keep with stiff pride, as if each step asserted that the castle belonged to them now. Crownland lords came next, pale and uncertain. Lord Giles Rosby coughing into a lace handkerchief, Lord Stokeworth's household men whispering nervously, small powers who had survived Lannister rule by bending and now sought to bend again without snapping. The High Septon arrived in a litter surrounded by guards, his face pinched tight, his eyes darting as if the Red Keep might swallow him. Septons followed like anxious shadows. The faith had come not because it wanted to, but because refusing Stannis Baratheon in his own castle felt too much like volunteering for martyrdom without the guarantee of sainthood. Davos watched the arrivals from a balcony above the courtyard, feeling the restless energy gather like a storm cloud. Each banner was a promise and a threat. Each lord who bowed was a man calculating how quickly he could rise again if the winds shifted. Stannis met them without warmth. He did not host feasts. He did not offer songs. He offered benches, water, and a place in a court that would judge a boy who had once been their king. Some lords bristled at the austerity. Some found it oddly reassuring. No honeyed words meant fewer hidden blades. When Queen Celis Florence's ship docked at the city's wharf, the courtyard's murmurs rose again. She arrived in a litter of dark wood, face pale and proud, the smell of incense following her like a cloak. Princess Shireen Baratheon walked beside her, book in hand, eyes wide as she stared up at the Red Keep's pale towers. Patchface capered behind, bells jingling, singing softly to himself. And behind them, flanked by guards, walked Edric Storm. Edric's black hair shone in the sun. His eyes were bright blue. He looked like a young Robert Baratheon plucked from a memory and made to stand in flesh before the realm. Davos's throat tightened. There it was, proof no parchment could mimic. Shireen glanced up at Davos when she passed beneath the balcony, her expression earnest, uncertain. Edric looked up too, and Davos saw fear behind his brave posture. A messenger hurried to Stannis with word of their arrival. Stannis came out into the courtyard, face hard, and stopped before his wife and daughter. Celis bowed. "Your Grace," she said, voice fervent. "The Lord of Light has granted." Stannis cut her off with a raised hand. "Not here," he said. His gaze moved to Shireen, and for a heartbeat it softened. Not into tenderness, but into something quieter and more dangerous in him. Responsibility. "Father," Shireen said softly. Stannis nodded once. "You will stay close," he said. "You will not wander. This castle is not ours yet." "Not truly." Shireen nodded, clutching her book tighter. Then Stannis's gaze shifted to Edric Storm. The bastard boy straightened, trying to look like a lordling rather than a piece on a board. "Edric Storm," Stannis said. Edric swallowed. "Your Grace." "You will be called," Stannis said. "You will speak truth." Edric's voice trembled. "And if I do?" Stannis's eyes were cold. "Then you will have served the realm," he said. It was not comfort. It was command. Edric nodded anyway, because he had never learned how to refuse kings. As the courtyard filled with banners and whispers and the scent of sea salt brought in on Dragonstone's wind, Davos understood that the trial was no longer an idea written on parchment. It was gathering bodies. It was gathering eyes. And soon it would gather blood. The day the trial began, the Iron Throne seemed to loom larger, as if hungry. The throne room was full in a way it had not been since Robert Baratheon's feasts. Yet there was no laughter, no music, no clatter of cups. The air was thick with murmurs and the faint, nervous rustle of silk. Lords sat on benches arranged like a tribunal. Maesters waited with books open, quills poised. Septons stood in a cluster near the High Septon, their 7-pointed stars glinting in torchlight like small, trembling shields. Stannis Baratheon stood beneath the Iron Throne, still refusing to sit, black cloak falling straight down his back like a shadow made solid. Queen Celis Florent sat stiffly at the side with Princess Shireen Baratheon beside her. Shireen's scarred face half hidden as she watched the room with wide eyes. Davos Seaworth stood near the front, hands clasped, feeling the weight of every gaze that flicked toward him. The smuggler raised to night, the low-born man standing too close to power. Varys watched from a pillar, still and smiling faintly, as if savoring the shape of history. A hush fell when the doors at the far end opened. Joffrey was led in by guards, chains clinking softly. He wore plain dark cloth. His hair had been brushed, his face washed clean, and that cleanliness made him look younger, smaller, more vulnerable than the crown had ever allowed. His eyes darted across the room, searching for allies. He found none. Cersei Lannister entered behind him, guarded, her gown plain by her standards but still rich enough to remind the room who she believed she was. Her chin was lifted. Her eyes were bright with hatred. She looked at Stannis as if she meant to stab him with her gaze. Stannis's voice cut through the silence. "This court is convened," he said, "by the laws of the 7 kingdoms, by the right of the crown, by the will of the realm." The High Septon's lips moved in a prayer that sounded more like fear than devotion. Stannis unrolled a parchment. "Joffrey Waters," he said, and the name made the room stir, "is accused of treason, of false claim, of usurpation. He is accused of murder for the unlawful execution of Lord Eddard Stark. He is accused of tyranny against the small folk. He is accused of being born of incest, and thus having no right to the Iron Throne." A murmur ran through the benches, some shocked, some eager, some pretending shock to hide how long they had suspected. Joffrey surged forward, chains rattling. "Lies!" he shouted, voice cracking. "I am the king. I!" A guard shoved him back to his place. Joffrey glared, panting, face flushed. Stannis did not look at him. He looked at the gathered lords. "You have been summoned to hear truth," he said, "to witness, to judge. You will not leave this hall saying you did not know." He turned slightly. "Bring the first witness." Sansa Stark stepped forward from the shadows near a pillar, dark cloak wrapped around her like armor. The room's gaze snapped to her, some lords recognizing her, some seeing only a pretty girl, none understanding yet how sharp she had become. She curtsied, movement precise. "Your Grace," she said, voice steady. Stannis' eyes fixed on her. "Lady Sansa Stark," he said, "you will speak under oath. You will speak truth." Sansa lifted her chin. "I will," she said, and the simplicity of the words carried a weight the hall could not ignore. She spoke of her father's arrest, of promises made and broken, of the Sept steps, of Ser Island Payne's sword. She did not weep. She did not falter. She spoke as if carving the memory into stone so it could never be denied again. The hall listened, some with clenched jaws, some with faces pale and tight. A few men shifted uncomfortably, remembering how they had cheered Joffrey's cruelty because it was easier than resisting it. When Sansa finished, Joffrey's breath came fast and ragged. "She lies," he spat, voice thin. "She lies because she's a traitor's daughter." Sansa turned her head and looked at him. Her eyes were cold. "I watched you smile," she said softly. "I watched you command it. That is not a lie." The words struck harder than any shouted accusation. The room murmured again, unsettled. Stannis raised a hand. "Enough," he said. He turned toward the infirmary doors at the side of the hall. "Bring Lord Tyrion Lannister." Tyrion was carried in on a chair by 2 guards, his face pale beneath bandages, his eyes bright with a bitter intelligence that seemed almost defiant. The sight of him drew murmurs, some remembering him as the hand who had kept the city from tearing itself apart, others remembering him as a Lannister and thus guilty by blood. Tyrion's gaze flicked to Cersei. Cersei's mouth tightened. The hatred between them was a living thing. Stannis looked down at Tyrion. "You knew," he said. Tyrion's smile was small and sharp. "If I say no," he rasped, "will you believe me?" Stannis' eyes did not blink. Tyrion exhaled slowly, then lifted his gaze to the assembled lords. "I have seen that book," he said, voice rough but carrying. "The one Lord Jon Arryn read. I have heard the whispers. I have looked at Robert Baratheon's bastards and looked at—" His eyes flicked to Joffrey. "And I have known," Tyrion finished. A shock ran through the hall like a sudden gust. Even men who had suspected stared, because suspicion was comfortable until someone spoke it aloud under oath. Cersei's face went white-hot with fury. "You little—" she hissed, and would have surged forward if guards had not held her. Stannis lifted his gaze to her. "Queen Cersei Lannister," he said, voice cold. "You will answer." For a heartbeat, the hall held its breath. Cersei stepped forward, chains of her own making rattling invisibly around her. Chin lifted as if she would rather die than kneel. And the realm leaned in, hungry to watch a secret become history.